Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Susan Moore. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at the International Institute of Business Analysis. Thanks, everyone, for taking time out of your day to join us. Whether you stayed up late, maybe it's at the middle of the day for you. We always love when you make time to come and join us. We have got somebody special here. You might have seen him on LinkedIn. You do quite a bit out there. You've got a podcast, but you're an author and clearly you're an MC. But we're joined today by with we are joined today by Fabricio Laguna. We're going to talk about the outcome-driven mindset, which comes from his book, Please Hold. It is an IIBA publishing book, and we're going to tell you some more about that in just a minute. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping. We are recording today's session. You'll get a link to the recording 24 hours after today. Fabricio, I didn't ask if you wanted to share your slide deck. You can let me know later. But we'll give you more information about this book as well. You guys are doing a great job in chat. We love it when you talk with us and talk with each other, so keep doing that. We will take some questions today, so you can put those into the Q&A box. Just makes it a little easier for us to find your questions. Some of you have already found the reactions, and he can see those. So as he is talking, or maybe you're hearing more about this playlist, let him know how much do you like it. And he can see those reactions. Again, I want to welcome Fabricio here. He is not only an educator, he's been a practitioner, former chapter leader of the Brazil chapter, and author now of this book, Please Hold, The Power of Outcome-Driven Thinking. All right. I think that's it. I'm gonna turn it over to you, but I'm gonna be hanging around because we're gonna do a little something different because that's what he does. He does things a little different.
Thank you very much, Susan. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor, and thank you everybody for joining. It's a real nice opportunity to be sharing some thoughts with the community. So the book is a place for sharing thoughts, but we are trying to find other ways to share about the idea of what an outcome-driven mindset is. Susan asked if I would share my slide deck. Of course, I can share it, and we can put that online for you. It's not a very long list. We just had put some thoughts together, trying to explain what an outcome-driven mindset is in an easier way. So all this is deeply explained in the book, Please Hold. But the book's not a technical book or not even a manual or something very conceptual. It's a romance. It's a storytelling book that help us to see a business analyst in action, or someone who is playing business analysis, and in the story he's even learning how to do it. And so we can relate to that character and try to understand how we can change the way we behave by changing what we feel and what we think. That's the idea behind it. And Susan, please stay with me. Let's make this more a conversation than a presentation. I don't want this to be a presentation. Let's chat. I believe
All
that's
right.
the
I'm here. I'm
most
back.
important thing. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's start. I bet for folks that are joining us today, if you and first of all, I have been reading the book, and I will agree. This, by the way, this is a really easy read because it is more like a novel than it is a reference guide. And that's kind of what I like about it, because very often what we talk about is we want to show people what we can do rather than tell people what we can do. And this book is a perfect example of what that is. Let's dive in a little bit, not so much with the characters of this, but let's maybe first dive into what do we mean by an outcome-driven mindset? If we say that the main character of your book, whose name is, quote, me, It's not Fabricio. It's his name is me. Um, Tell us what that is, and and
Correct.
and how did you get to this idea of the outcome-driven mindset?
Correct. So let's start by defining the difference between outputs and outcomes. I believe that that may be useful for those who are watching us. So trying to understand. When you talk about an outcome, it's something that is the result of a task. I do have something in my slide deck, so let's use this. And I got the help from a guy called Luc Toussaint. He's a French guy who lives in Slovakia, and I met him on LinkedIn, and he's a business analyst and also an illustrator. And he said, "Oh, Fabrizio, I see you have been doing some videos and stuff online, and you do articles and you do a lot of stuff. Let's join forces. Let's do something together." And I asked him some help to illustrate this difference between outcomes and outputs, and he created some very nice illustrations that we are going to use here. So when you talk about outputs is what what's what ends from a task or for a process. So if you are doing a task, what you produce at the end is the output. Let's say you're responsible for specifying requirements. Our requirement specifications is the output of our job, right? Or if you're a programmer, you're producing code. The code is the output of your work. Everyone who is working and producing something is the output is what he produced as the end of the task. But that's different from the outcome. The outcome is not what I produce, it's the consequence that happens before it. So if I'm producing a requirement specification, the outcome should be, or the expected outcome should be that the needs of the stakeholders that I'm trying to solve are solved, right? So that I can create value for the business, I can create value for the stakeholders, I can create value for the whole environment. So when I'm driven by outcomes, I'm trying to understand the consequence of what I'm doing. I'm not just doing tasks because I was asked to do tasks. If I'm working, whatever work I'm doing, and this is independent of your job, your role in an organization, you can be just working to get your payment and come back home producing. I produced my outputs. Check, 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 check. That's what I was told to do, and I did. Or you can think about the consequence. What's the purpose of my job? I'm working in an organization that have a mission, that have some values, that have a purpose, and how do I collaborate for that mission? That's a different way of seeing yourself into an organization. That changes very much your mindset, right? And that's what we're talking about here. So that creates a different perspective. Let me use some examples so I can explain you this difference between outputs and outcomes. Let's think of a doctor, right? Some patients came to his office and asked, "Oh, doctor, I want a facelifting." Let's say this beautiful girl came and said, "Oh, I want thicker lips, I want to stuff my cheeks, and I want to a nose lift," right? So if that's what she asked, and the doctor is an output-driven person, that's exactly what he's going to deliver. Because when we are talking about outputs, we are putting ourselves in the eyes of the provider and trying to understand what the provider will do. In this case, the doctor, the surgeon, right? And so what he's going to deliver. And he even defines a price for what he's going to do and everything, and that's what he's going to deliver. But maybe at the end of all this surgery, all this operation, she might not be happy yet because she was not expecting the outputs, but she was expecting the outcomes. And what she was expecting is she wanted to feel herself beautiful. She wanted to get better self-esteem. She wants to find a boyfriend. So it's different. It's not what the provider will do. It's what the customer needs, right? That is expected from as a result from that surgery. And if you look for this girl, you can think she's kind of crazy because she's a beautiful girl. She probably don't need a surgery. She maybe don't even need a plastic surgeon. She needs a psychologist, probably better, a better solution for her. So when you think about the outcomes, you can discuss about why do you need these outputs? Are those the right outputs for you? Let's use another example that's more relatable for people who comes from IT. I know a lot of people who comes and join our webinars are from working in IT. So let's say my customer asked me for a new report. Oh, so we have a system. I would like to have a new report, and this new report should have these two columns: the order number and the customer status. And that's what I need. Please create that for me. And if I am a developer or an IT person responsible for providing that request, that's easy. Well, I can even look for that and think about the SQL statement to create that report. That's easy to do. That's what the provider will do, right? That's the output of my work. But if I'm an outcome-driven person, I should ask you why. Why do you need this report? We have a lot of reports on our systems. Why do you need that? And the outcome or what the customer needs is, oh, there is a business rule where we should not ship or send orders for customers that are inactive. So I want to block product shipping to inactive customers. If you give me these reports, and I'm the one responsible for shipping orders. Before shipping, I would look into the order number and if the customer is active or inactive, and if they're inactive, I would not ship it, right? So that's why I need this report. Well, there are probably better ways to deal with these business rules, right? So if you don't want to send shipment for inactive customers, maybe you should block them for ordering at first. When they are making an order in the system, you should say, oh, your status is inactive. Please renew your status or update your situation. Otherwise, you cannot order. So when I understand the outcome, I can talk about it. I can understand the bigger picture and suggest better solutions, better outputs to get the best outcome. So I understand why is this business rule important for my organization? What are we trying to achieve as a result? And so I can suggest better alternatives. So that's the idea between outputs and outcomes, Susan.
I think often we sometimes think that those two are the same thing. Sometimes that we can go and ask our stakeholder, what is it that you want? And we may think what they're telling us is an outcome, but very often, especially in the example that you just shared, very often they may not articulate what that outcome is. And this is about thinking a little bit differently. You are thinking out a little bit further. So I know when you and I first had the conversations about output versus outcome, one of the questions I had for you was, do you see, is there something about time? Is there a time element to these things? Because I guess in my mind, I see an output as something that can be generated as a result of a task that I complete. But outcome seems like I am thinking into the future a bit longer.
Yes, you're right. So when we're talking about outcomes, it takes some time for us to evaluate the outcomes. And what we create are outputs. The outputs can then generate some outcomes at the future. So the point is not that we are creating outcomes. We are driven by outcomes. There's a little different. So I can choose the outcomes that are better for my context, for my situation, and so I can work for creating the outcomes that's going to generate the outcome in the future, as you said, right? Or not just in the future, but in a wider vision. So I should not, maybe if a user is asking me for some change in the system, I should look not just from his perspective, because that might be good for this specific user, and that may create problems for other kinds of users or for the organization as a whole, right? So, or for shareholders or for the environment. So trying to understand the bigger picture is trying to understand the outcomes. And there's always gonna be outcomes, right? The point is, are those outcomes the expected outcomes? And sometimes we don't even have those because we didn't define them. They're not explicit. I don't understand. Girl came to my office and asked me for a nose lift, and I just provided it. But what was she expecting with that? Did she have a problem with breathing, or did she want to look prettier? So if I don't understand what are the expected outcomes, I may be delivering very bad outputs, right? Because they are not connected. And that's the beauty of business analysis. So let's connect this conversation with business analysis. Business analysis is the practice of enabling changes into organizations that create values for stakeholders. So we are trying to understand what is this expected value. And so guaranteeing that the outcomes of what we are, of the changes that we are proposing or implementing into organizations can create that value as an outcome, right? So that's the point. I should look ahead on time, as you said, not just ahead, but broader from different perspectives, different stakeholders, different audience, and try to understand the whole and see what's this going to create in the future or for all, what's the expected outcomes, right? And when you talk about requirements, there are different types of requirements. So I should start my requirement solicitation from the expected outcomes. And then I can go down and deep and define into the outputs. At some point, I have to define outputs because that's a plan. That's what a plan is, right? So I have this list of tasks that are going to produce that. But I should start by defining the outcomes.
Yes, and I think that's the thing. Like, we're not saying that outputs are not important. We're saying that outcomes should drive the correct kinds of outputs that you need to create. And something else that I'll say, as you and I have been talking about these concepts, and by the way, there's a third concept that plays a role in here, and Emerson brings it up, which is value. So we want to talk about value here in just a minute.
Okay.
But these outcomes, one, they can evolve over time. So that today, if the young lady came into the office and said, I would like to get my nose done, today, maybe her outcome is, I'd like to feel prettier. But after she gets her nose done, then the outcome in the future may be, this is not the nose that I wanted. And
Yeah.
now I can't breathe, or it doesn't look right on my face. And now I have a new outcome, right? So they're evolving. But the other thing is, and the reason why talking to different people is important is because that outcome can be very specific to a particular kind of stakeholder. It could be different. Um,
Yeah.
and what you've got to do is understand what are these different outcomes and how do I make sense of it?
Let's connect that idea with the concept of value, right?
Yep.
So when we define value, value is the worth or importance or usefulness of something to someone in a specific context, right? So something that might be valuable for you or create a positive value for you may create a negative value for me into the same context. Let's say we are playing tennis and we are into different positions. Right? We're playing against each other, right? So something that creates value for you, a positive value for you, an advancement for you, will create a negative value for you. So if I'm trying to change organizations, and that's what we do as business analysts, we are changing organizations. To generate value, we must understand the value for who, right? So value is always connected to someone, right? And in what context? Because when context change, everything changes. So what's valuable or not? Like if you are in the desert, you need water. It's probably the most valuable thing that you need because you're thirsty and you are dehydrated. If you are in the middle of the ocean, just thinking, getting drowned, water may be a negative, may have a negative value for you because you have too much water, you cannot deal with that, right? So the thing, in this case, water, depending on the context, may have different value for different stakeholders. So when we talk about being guided by outcomes, we have to understand these outcomes generate values for different stakeholders. So if I want to see the big picture, I need to understand who are my stakeholders, what is valuable for them, what's the context they are inserted into, so I can understand what's valuable for them. And then I can start planning how do I create good outputs that's going to create the best value for them. Sometimes you have to balance this value because you're looking into different lenses, different perspectives, and what's the best value you can work with, and you have to negotiate. So being able to be a negotiator is key to trying to figure out what's the desired outcome of an initiative of a transformation.
We are through this conversation just on the edge of starting to describe the business analysis core concept model, right? Because we've
Yeah,
already talked about some of the elements of that. We've talked
sure.
about value and
Mm-hmm.
stakeholder and change.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Context.
Context, right? That's another one. So, for those not familiar with the business analysis core concept model, I don't think you have a slide for that, but I will make sure that if you are not familiar with that, that is available in the business analysis standard, which is a free download. Another thing I'll drop in here. Um, because you can start to see through just that very simple model how all of these pieces are really important and how one change in one of those areas then begins to change everything else in that model.
And we can connect that with something that we have to talk today. When we're talking about the business analysis core concept model, those are six concepts. We're talking about change, context, stakeholder value. The other two ones are needs and solutions for those who haven't heard about it. And that became so natural for us that our practice in business analysis that changes the way we think. And that's another concept that I would like to share with you and talk about is this concept of a mindset. So when we are talking about mindset, and I must admit, right, mindset is not a term that everyone takes it serious because it sounds fluffy.
It does sound fluffy.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, Fabricio's here just talking about mindset. Oh, this is coach stuff. This is not serious. But that's something very useful. If you want to change people behavior, if you want to change culture, you should think about mindset as a way of seeing the world. It's like the lens you use to see the world. So if you have a business analysis mind, if you look for the world as a business analyst, you're going to look everywhere and you're going to look for stakeholders, context, change, needs, solutions, value. That becomes the way you see, the way you think. It creates a standard way of seeing. I have been trying to talk about mindset for some years, and this book is probably the deepest I could get into evolving the BA mindset. Let me share with you another slide. I started talking about BA mindset as a way of changing people perception about what business analysis is. And I even created some videos and some presentations saying that business analysis is not a role, business analysis is a mindset. So, but before me, Yulia Kozarenko had wrote this book, Business Analyst, A Profession and a Mindset, a very nice book, influenced me a lot when I was creating my own material. And IIBA in 2022, I guess, on the business analysis standard, created a chapter called the BA mindset, right? And I was also creating some stuff, and I joined Yulia Kozarenko to write an article called "Different Perspectives on the Business Analysis Mindset." And we saw that she was talking about mindset because she was teaching a lot of people how to do business analysis. And in her perspective, or the problem she was facing is there's a lot of techniques I can teach people, and there's this hard skill part of business analysis, and there's a lot of stuff that are not techniques. It's like behavior, a different way of like art. She called it art, right? And she called it that the mindset. So she used the concept of a mindset to create this thing that's not very tangible as techniques to help her to teach her students. When you look at the business analysis standard, you see that IIBA started from a different problem. He sees that business analysis can be applied into very different methods. Like you can use a an agile way of doing business analysis, or you can use a waterfall way of doing business analysis, or you can use interactive way. So there are very different kinds of professionals doing business analysis, but they're all doing business analysis. So what's in common with all those ones? And they use the concept of business analysis to show that business analysis can be done in different ways, but they have the same mindset, right? I was trying to get more people into business analysis, and that was the way that's why I started speaking about business analysis, not a job, not a profession, but a mindset. So everyone could use business analysis into their profession. And so I use the mindset as this concept. But when we look for all those different definitions, we can see that there's something that connects every one of us. So Julia, IIBA, and myself, is the mindset is based on the way we think and feel that changes the way we act. And business analysts, usually, they think motivated by outcomes, what we just spoke about, right? They're trying to understand the consequence of what's being done. And these outcomes must have an holistic vision. They're trying to see the whole. They're trying to look for different stakeholders. They're trying to understand the context of what they're doing. And this guides a very specific way of acting. When you think about the way we think and feel, that's invisible. I can look for you. I can see your expressions. I cannot see your thoughts, right? I can see the way you react. And your thoughts are the way you act. And how business analysts usually act. What's their behavior? They're analytical and collaborative, because they want to understand the consequences. So they are analytical, and they use a lot of techniques to become analytical. We have a lot of business analysis techniques that help us to analyze, and they are collaborative. And we have a lot of techniques that foster collaboration between organizations. So that's something that's visible. You can see business analysts working that way. And so if you wanna make someone to act as a business analyst, you should start from the way they think and feel. You should start by changing their motivation and their vision, right?
I have hired business analysts over the years. And one of the things that I always looked for when I was looking for my next teammate was, how do they think about things? Do they seem to have a natural sense of curiosity? Are they interested in how things work? Um, those, I think, are some of those behaviors that represent, I think, a business analysis mindset. Those are some traits. And actually, I know we've done a podcast on this about, is curiosity a trait? Is it something else? But I think there are, in just people that who seem to be curious, want to understand how folks work, probably being a little persistent or tenacious in understanding things. Those are, I think, other traits that help us to exemplify what that business analysis mindset looks like.
Yeah. Well, as my concept of the business analysis mindset evolved, I decided to change how I approach it, because I felt like calling it business analysis mindset was restricting my audience. So a lot of people don't see themselves as business analysts. A lot of people don't see themselves as business people. I can see a lot of people who works in government, and they say, "Oh, government is not a business." It is, right? We understand it as a business, but they think about a business as something for profit. Some people are working in non-profit organizations like churches, hospitals, and they don't like to call themselves as business people, right? And some other people don't like to call themselves analysts, because they're, I don't know, managers, they're product owners, they are executives, C-level executives or something like that. But they do a lot of business analysis, but they don't recognize the naming. So I started talking about the outcome-driven mindset, which we know, right? Because we are in the same team here, so we know it came from the business analysis mindset, and business analysis practice can develop this outcome-driven mindset. And I started collecting and trying to summarize what are those traits you mentioned. So those characteristics that creates this outcome-driven mindset. And what I've learned about explaining a mindset for someone is that it's stronger when you explain a mindset and put it against some opposite mindset, right? So, and that's what I did. So to explain what an outcome-driven mindset is, I showed up the difference between an outcome and an output-driven mindset. So let me share with you the summary that is on the book and is even available on the free preview that IIBA shows provides. What's the difference between an output-driven and an outcome-driven mindset? So remember, the mindsets based on the way we think and feel changes the way we act. Think and feel is invisible, acting is visible. You can see that, right? So starting about the way we think. If I'm an output-driven mindset, I'm limited. That means I work for the success of my job, of my role, of my silo, of my department, right? So I look for the silo where I'm in, and I'm working for the best KPIs of my silo. But if I'm an outcome driven, I have an holistic view. I'm looking for a role. As we spoke about the business, about the environment, about all stakeholders. So it changes my vision, right? If I'm an output driven person, I'm compliant. That means, let's make it clear. I work to do the things right. Right? So that's what compliant is. Done, check. Check. Output, delivery, check. Right? So doing the things right. But if I'm an outcome-driven person, I'm more concerned about being effective. And being effective means doing the right things. There's a very big difference between doing things right and doing the right things, right? And I'm concerned that the whole organization is doing the right things. That's what an outcome-driven person is always think, oh, is this going to get us the expected outcome? Is this the right things that must be done? Not just doing it right. Because you can do the wrong things right, and you're not going to have the best outcome, right? So that's about how we think. Talking about the way we feel. If I'm an output-driven person, I'm usually averse to debate. That means when people don't agree, they have a disagreement, I'm hoping that a boss can come and take decisions for us, because I don't want to argue, because that's boring, right? So that's annoying, and I don't want this kind of problem. But if I'm an outcome-driven person, I understand that I don't have all perspectives. I can't see the whole, everything. Actually, no one can see the whole. We need different perspectives, and so I'm open to listen. I want to understand why people disagree, and when someone comes with a disagreement, I say, "Oh, that's an opportunity for us to understand a different perspective." That's what being open to listen is, and that changes the way we feel about stuff. And talking about the way we feel, if I'm an output-driven person, I'm usually very uncomfortable with complexity and things that are changing so much. This VUCA world. So I'm fearful. Oh, things are changing. Oh, AI is coming. I'm so afraid about it. Oh, there is a change in the world, and that makes me afraid. But if I'm an outcome-driven person, complexity and changes don't make me afraid. They don't bring me fear, they bring me curiosity. That's what you're doing. And that makes me bold. So I love to learn new things. Oh, there's interesting. There's a new technology over there. Oh, that's a nice opportunity for growth. I'm looking for growth. I'm looking for these different situations. And I don't see complexity as something scary, but I see complexity as something that amazes me, right? So the whole world, complexity is something amazing. See, if you look for the nature is so complex and so amazing, right? Try to understand a forest. Oh, that's amazing, right? So it's not you should not be scared. That's a very different way about feeling. And those different ways of thinking and feeling changes the way you act. And that's the visible part of it. So the behavior part. If I'm an output-driven person, I'm usually rigid. That means anyone who brings a new idea, I avoid those different ideas. I say, oh, that's not going to work. We always did the things this way, so we should not change in a winning team, right? But if I'm an outcome-driven person, I'm always adaptable. I'm actually not just accepting different ideas, I'm proposing different ideas because I always see that there's a better way. There must be a better way to do stuff. We can always improve and we should adapt, right? If I'm an outcome driven person, I'm usually what we call obedient. Tell me what I have to do and I will do that. So give me my list of tasks and I will produce you the outputs you expected. So I follow the recipe, right? That's what obedient means. But if I'm an outcome driven person and I see that the recipe is not going to give you the best outcome, I will create something different. I become creative, right? So I'm trying to figure out new ways and other ways of getting better outcomes, of creating more value. So that changes my perspective. And the last one of those, if I'm an output driven person, I don't like very much to listen to others. I'm a very individualistic person. I don't give me my tasks and I will do whatever I have to do. That's my job. So let me just get my job done and get my money so I can come back home and live my life, right? Like if working was not living your life. So if I'm an outcome driven person, I'm collaborative because I need other people to join. So I take responsibility for getting other people on the table and making them not just like open to listen, but even more than that, creating the opportunity for people to talk and interact, and so we can have a wider view of stuff that changes the way I behave. And you can see like business analysts working as facilitators in organizations where they work.
I am going to, so we've got lots of thoughts over in chat, and we've also got some questions that are coming in. I actually want to take Nora's question really quickly. And she's referring to, when you started with what you were learning with that phrase, business analysis mindset. So her question was, does business analysis mindset only work for BAs or other people, such as product managers and project managers? And I think what you are saying is actually, in some ways, calling it a business analysis mindset limits us. That really, if we set that to the side and just think outcome driven, everybody can have an outcome driven mindset regardless of where you are. I don't know if you
Perfect.
want to add to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's perfect. You said it all. I just want to add to that that I wish every professional could see themselves and say, "Oh, I am a business analyst." Independent of their job title, let's say they are a janitor and he should say, oh, I'm a business analyst. Why are you a business analyst? Because I try to enable changes in my organization and get better outcomes for everyone. But as I understand, this is a hard name. I created this other name. Let's call it a nickname. I'm an outcome-driven mindset person, right? So it's probably easier for people to see. But they are the same things. I'm talking about the same thing.
Yeah. So I don't think that outcome driven can be limited. I mean, I'm just thinking like I've danced forever and I've got old achy joints and sometimes I have to go see doctors about achy joints and I can always tell the difference in a medical professional who is just there to prescribe me something. Oh, your knee hurts? Oh, here, take this. Versus one who is thinking about, oh, you like to dance? Let's talk about how we can come up with a medical protocol for you that will allow you to dance, but also be able to do it safely or without pain, right? So that's a medical professional or a doctor. Output, I just give you a pill. Outcome,
Mhm.
how do we allow you to continue to dance, but do it in a way that doesn't continue to hurt?
I can give
So,
you a pill for that cough as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to see them for the cough next. Oh my goodness. Anyway, thank you for that question, Nor. Let's see. All right. It's since we're sort of moving into some questions because we are starting to get a lot of questions. Why don't we take a few?
Okay.
And excuse me, I am going to go in upvote order. So if you guys are looking at the Q&A box and you see a question and you have it, just give it an upvote. If you have a question, drop it into that box. So this first question is from Stephen. The common problem I see is that the customer thinks they know what output will give them the outcome they want. True. When I try to get to their outcome, they just repeat the output. What are ways that we can um, help our customers get to talking with us about outcomes?
Okay. So business analysis techniques are very useful in these situations. Like if you are talking about an organization and people are saying, "Oh, please create me a new software," you should ask why, right? So, because let's be truth to each other that nobody needs a new software. There's plenty of software out there. So the software is never what people are expecting as an outcome. It's an output. So you should ask, why do you need a new software? And they must say, oh, because the software that I want is not there, or the software that I have is not delivering the outcomes I expect. And then you can tell me, what are the outcomes you expect? You should a way that business analysis can help us to understand is trying to understand, let's say you map the process, you define KPIs or key performance indicators, and you could relate the expected outcomes with business indicators, with business KPIs. So we want to increase customer satisfaction. You want to decrease the time for delivering a product. So trying to relate with something that's higher than the outcome is probably a nice way. And probably making questions is how we do it. And techniques help us very much about understanding that. I'm quoting process analysis, KPIs as some, but there are a lot of techniques that helps us to see the whole and discuss not just what we're delivering, but what we expect as a result. I like to ask my customers when I see they asking for an output, something like, let's say I produced what you are asking for me. And at the end, I'm going to say, are you happy? What makes you happy? So how can we define that you are satisfied with what we have been building? So probably that's a different way of trying to bring the outcomes. And you're right, sometimes they didn't even think about those outcomes. So that's a chance for us to discuss and maybe even try to rethink about the order that they asked for, right? Maybe that's not the best output.
Uh, a number of times in my career, I would have a stakeholder describe to me what they wanted. They basically told me what the solution was. And I would start from there and say, why would that help you?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm curious. Why does something in a drop down field, why does that help you? And that is, I think, a way that you can, without saying, no, just tell me what it is that you need. Don't tell me how to solve the problem. Just tell me what it is that you're trying to do, right? Which can feel a little, I don't know, it can feel a little awkward. But I
Yeah.
think that there are ways that you can use an outcome-driven mindset. Tell me how that helps you. What does that do for you? Does that make things easier for you? And sometimes that can open the door, but I can see where those other traits, other characteristics that you were talking about come into play because it's not just that I'm asking the question, why does that help you? But I'm approaching it with a sense of curiosity, with, I am not getting offended because that person wants to offer me a solution. Maybe that is how they think it could be solved. That's fine. Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there are other things, other feelings that I can be using to make it possible to have the conversation. And I think in the work that we do, we sometimes don't think about how our feelings and the way that those are presented to folks can prevent us from being outcome driven because we make it difficult. for folks to be able to share with us.
Yeah. So let's give another example. I like examples; they're useful.
Yeah.
So let's say I go to a car store to buy a car, right? The salesperson come to me and say, "Oh, what do you need? I need a new car," and I buy a Ferrari. Ferrari. Am I pronouncing it correctly? We call it Ferrari in Portuguese.
What? Okay, say that again. What is the example you're?
Ferrari. Ferrari.
Oh, Ferrari. Yes,
Ferrari.
yes.
Yeah. Is that a good car?
Um,
Probably. Yeah. Good. But
if you
what
can afford
for?
it, yeah.
Oh, let's say I can afford it, right? But why do you need a Ferrari? Or why do you need a car? And I say, oh, I need a car to travel with my family to see my parents. They live in another town, right? So I have two kids, one dog, and a parrot. The Ferrari is not the best car for me, right? So it's probably a good car, but not for me because you're not understanding my point of view. So the salesperson should try to understand. Say, oh, I want to give you a good car, but for giving you this good car, I need to understand what do you expect to use this car for? What are the benefits you expect from this new car? So we must we must ask, we must try to understand, put ourselves in the other person's shoes and try to understand what's valuable for them, right? So having a fast car is not even valuable for me. I need a big car, I need space, I need safety, I need a lot of stuff that are that's not the best car for me.
Yes. And so it's just about asking those questions.
Yeah.
It's the mindset of I am curious about why they want that, and I am going to do it in a way that indicates I am curious and also opens the door to allowing them to share because if you were in the Ferrari store, you probably weren't thinking about, well, I'm trying to travel with kids and pets and all of that stuff, right? You've just heard a Ferrari is it's a good car, right? Um,
And you know, if you have this mindset as a salesperson, right, that makes you a better salesperson. Right? Or if you have this mindset, is anyone who is working in a situation and can transform an organization to get better outcomes, it makes a better professional. So having an outcome-driven mindset may be a key differentiator, may be something that puts your career in a different point because you are always looking for value for everyone. And for yourself, that changes very much as well because you're not just doing tasks and producing outputs, you are changing lives, you're creating value for people. So that's a part of what I like the most behind the outcome driven mindset is that it can create benefits for everyone, for you as a person, because you start looking at yourself with someone who has a purpose, right? For people who are you are solving problems, and for our organization that you're creating better outcomes or better results.
um, let's talk a little bit about the book, because I think this is maybe with that example, maybe this is a good time to talk about this again. Because when you are known as somebody in an organization who thinks about outcomes, who helps to enable people, your stakeholders, to be able to identify them better, more clearly, more consistently. When you are known as that person, very often you get asked to join initiatives earlier. You might even be sought out for your ability to do that because that's
Mhm.
a little bit of an unusual thing, and that is exactly the story of your main character. So I'm not going to give it away, although you've got a couple of folks here who have read the book, and also Kitty is wants you to sign her copy when you're in the UK coming up. So make sure to bring
Oh,
your pen so you can sign some books.
it's
Um,
going to be a pleasure, Kitty.
but that is the story of me in here. So me works for a bank where they are very output driven. Just answer the phone, hit your metrics. You got 5 minutes. That's literally the tagline here. um, and move on to the next phone call. And me in this book decides one day that he's going to do more than that. And that leads to other opportunities, which demonstrate this outcome driven mindset.
Yeah, and there's some philosophy behind that, right? So let's talk about this more philosophical part of the story. And something nice about stories is that everyone who reads the story have a personal perspective. And I like when you say me has, and you can even say I, because when I wrote this character, he is nameless on purposeful, because I want my reader to identify with the character. And as the character changes his perspective on life, that the reader can also change his perspective or her perspective on life. So that's the idea I had, or I was trying to do when writing. And the book starts with a question. And this question is does life happens by chance or by choice? So what makes you a successful person? Because you got lucky or because you had the right decisions on your life? So let me share my screen again, because this is a good sales screen. So when you think about that, that's a different way of seeing our life. So if I think that life happens by chance, so I'm a victim of life, right? I just didn't have lucky. So my success just happened, or my bad success just happened because life imposed me some situations. Context is defining me, right? But if I see or I think that life happens by choice, that's my way of seeing of changing the world. I can change my world. I'm not saying from this point of view that I can change context just by an attitude. You know what how to define an attitude, Susan? There are probably different ways of defining it. I'm not going to put you on a difficult situation here. I have to explain it. So
Okay.
I have studied this stuff, and I can say so. A nice definition I heard: an attitude is mostly what you talk to people, but mainly what you talk to yourself.
Oh, okay.
That's a very nice way of understanding what an
Mhm.
attitude is. So let's see. I talk to myself. I'm not capable of doing this. I am a loser. So
Hmm.
when you talk those things for yourself, that changes the way you behave. So an attitude is something that happens mainly here, sometimes here, because you can change how others behave, but you usually changing your behaviors. So if you think about it, I'm capable, I can do it. So that's a different attitude. So if you have a positive attitude, that changes the way you behave. Some people even believe that if you have a positive attitude, you can change the world. Like if I think, oh, I'm gonna win the lottery, so you're gonna win the lottery. I don't believe that, right? So that's not my belief. But I think, and that's why I don't buy tickets for the lottery, right? So, but because I don't think I can influence the results of a lottery. But if I thought I can win the lottery, I would buy a ticket, right?
Right.
So that will change my behavior, right? So changing your behavior is based on your attitude. And on my perspective, you always have a choice. Even if you are living in a hard situation that you didn't choose, let's say you got a disease, you got cancer. Oh, that's bad. I cannot change my health by just choosing not to have cancer. That's not how it works. But I can choose how to face it. I can choose how to live with it, how I'm gonna use my time when I have cancer. If I'm going to fight against it, or if I'm going just to feel defeated. If I'm going to stay with my family, or if I'm going to be crying in the corner alone, right? So that's a choice, and we always have a choice. I believe that we always have a choice, at least to deal with the situation we live. So if you're going to your work and you are not happy to your work, you have a choice. You cannot go. You can stop going to that job. Oh, Fabricio, but I have to pay my bills. I cannot stop going. Yes, you cannot pay your bills, and maybe you go to the jail, right? And that's the outcomes of our choices. Oh no, I don't want that. So I prefer to work. So you're going to work because you choose to work. So you can choose it. And when you see that you are doing things that you are outcomes of your choices, that empowers you very much. I decided to be here. I decided to be here today to this webinar. I could say no. I could say, sorry, Susan, I don't want to share these ideas. But it was my choice. And as it was my choice, that makes me very happy about being here. Right? It connects with my purpose. I want to influence some people. So this changes my behavior. I'm in charge of my life, taking my choices, right? And that changes everything. Let's say a student that goes to school because their mom and dad said that they have to go to school. They don't feel like they choose. Let's say, you have the chance to choose. You can not go to school and be dummy and be no one in life and don't learn nothing. No, no, I want to go to school. That changes the way you think. No, I go to school because I want to learn, because I want to be a better professional person, someone more smart. And so let's use it. Let's explore. Let's take this opportunity for learning, and that changes a behavior, right? So seeing yourself as the one who is doing your life by free will, by choice, makes you not just think that luck's taking care of your life, but you are taking care of your life. Makes you not being just a reactive to things that happens, but aware that you are leading your life, that you are taking care of your life, not being resignated by what happens, but grateful for everything that happens. So I really believe that is not just surviving life, it's living, right? And
Yeah.
making an impact. And when you see yourself in this position and you have this outcome driven mindset, that you are thinking about the outcomes, again, you bring better outcomes for yourself, you bring better outcomes for others, you bring better outcomes for the organizations you're in, you become a better professional, a better person.
We've got some questions around how can I influence or make people around me be more outcome driven? Do you think that's possible? Can you
Yes, I
make
think
other
so.
people? Okay. Oh,
Yes, and that's a belief I have, right? So, and my belief is that, and that's why we are here at the IIBA webinar, is that business analysis can help people to become more outcome driven. So the practice of business analysis help us to see the whole, help us to understand the outcomes, the consequences. So when you practice business analysis and you engage with other people, you're not just using a technique, you're helping them to see things differently. You're helping them to develop this business analysis mindset. So it's, as a business analyst, as a professional business analyst, a lot of us are, we have the title of business analyst in our organizations. Our role is to make everyone more outcome driven, the whole organization more aware about what we are talking about, understanding the outcomes that we expect, and using those techniques and teaching other people how to use those techniques, change the way they see the world, change the way they understand. And interestingly, I started by there. So I started looking for business analysts and see what do they have in common. Oh, they have this mindset, right? And I'm ending about, oh, I want this mindset to be with everyone else, right? So I want to share this mindset with the world. How can I do that? Using the same techniques that we use. So becoming more skilled and fostering that other people can understand, that they can analyze business as we do, right? Can analyze situations, understand again what changes are needed to create solutions that solve the needs of my stakeholders, creating value in a specific context, like the six core concept models. See, that's our mindset.
yes. That describes that mindset. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we have just 1 minute left. It's
Oh,
flown by. So let's do a quick recap. So what this book is, please hold, The Power of the Outcome Driven Mindset. I think I have dropped in here once or twice the link. So if you are interested in purchasing it, And there is also a version in Portuguese if you would like that. So I'm going to drop it again. Here we go. That's for the English language version. And then you were just showing them the Portuguese one, which just came out.
Yes, just came out last week. So we
Yeah,
released
yeah,
it
it
at
is
the BA
hot off
Brazil
the press.
conference.
There is also a preview edition, so I'm going to drop that link in here
Nice.
as well. So if you
If you
would
want
like
to
to
check
preview them,
before buying,
that's
download the
right.
preview.
We should have mentioned at the top, we forgot to mention your book has a soundtrack.
Yes. Yeah. Before
And you,
start recording, we were listing some musics, and there's
that's right.
a web page where I list the soundtracks and connect it to the chapters where those musics just show up.
Yes, that's it. All right. And I know we had dropped in a couple of other links for the business analysis standard. I think I found something for the core concept model, although that core concept model is in the business analysis standard, that is a free download. So I
There's a
think
video on my website as well. If you look for BACCM, Business Analysis Core Concept Model on my website, you will find it.
somebody found it, and there it
Oh.
is. Somebody found it and dropped it in. So we want to thank you guys. Oh, by the way, the other versions of the book, it's a Kindle book. Is
There's
it
a
on
Kindle
Kindle?
book as well. Yes, a
Okay.
digital version of it. You can also get that on Amazon or go for the IIBA website and you'll find all those.
It's all the links. Yeah. It is such an easy read, and I think it helps you to see what exactly Fabricio was talking about with an outcome driven mindset. So that's it. That's the book. All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Fabricio, for your
Thank you,
time.
Susan, for hosting me. It was a pleasure to be here, as
Yes, it's
always.
as always.
Yeah.
I am so fortunate to get to spend time with you on a regular basis, and so I really appreciate our conversations. All right, guys, thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you all soon at another IIBA webinar. So you guys take care.
Bye bye, folks.
Bye.